You are listening to Charlie's Truth audio blog, Entry 11. Blessings, blessings, blessings. Hello, friends. Hello, family. Welcome to another entry of Charlie's Truth audio blog. Thank you for being here. I am so excited to be here, so grateful to be here. I pray that you all are well, that you're feeling good, that you're in flow, that you are hydrated and staying cool, because in some places we are experiencing a heat wave. So please take care of yourself. Please stay hydrated. Please be mindful of your body and the signals it's giving you. I am no doctor. I'm just telling you what I believe to be true. Okay? So I pray that you all are well, and I'm sending you a virtual hug. So let me tell you all that I'm up early. I don't know if it's really early as much as it's not my routine to do this. However, here we are at the audio blog because yesterday was a beautiful and great and amazing day. However, I did not get the audio blog done, so we are doing it this morning. We are doing the recording, the editing, and the uploading. Boom, 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 boom. And then later today, I will do another audio for it tomorrow. At least that is the plan for now. But life happens, shit happen, and we adjust accordingly. Okay? So, yesterday was Juneteenth, okay? Yesterday was Juneteenth. A lot of us was off from work, and I was on the Twitter. And while I was on Twitter, I saw some posts about freedom. I saw posts where people was like, we're not really free. And it got me thinking. I ended up posting on Twitter yesterday that, hold on. I posted, some don't want the responsibility of being free. I get it. Some don't want the responsibility of being free. I get it. And so I want to explore freedom today. I know that this is a complex topic. It's very layered. There are a lot of nuances. There are a lot of layers to it. Things I may be aware of and not aware of as I'm processing these thoughts. And so, this can be an invitation to a conversation and a discussion. And so I'm cool with that. But I will share my perspectives, my experience, and just my thoughts on the concept of freedom. Right, so Juneteenth is a day that symbolizes freedom. And so I want to explore what it truly means to be free. As I mentioned, freedom is complex, it's a multifaceted concept. And I want to share like different perspectives on it along with my own personal journey. So we'll go over some different lenses of freedom. Not too deep into it because this is an audio blog, okay? This ain't that. So I just wanted to explore some different lens of freedom, ideas of what freedom means or it looks like, and then share my own personal thoughts and perspective about it. I do have an outline. Yes, I did that. I do have an outline for us, so I will be going through. I have papers in front of me, so in some aspects, I'll be reading if I lose track, but it's to keep me focused, keep me on track, and like get this audio out so that, not only am I keeping my commitment to myself for the 30 audio blogs in 30 days, but I'm also like sharing something that I actually care about, and that is important. It is pivotal, and it is something I think that can get us all thinking and considering, and I don't know. However it lands, right? I trust that whatever is meant to do, it will. And so I'm here, which already says a lot, right? It is already meant to be because it is. And so here we are. Okay, so first of all, let's talk about philosophical freedom, right? Philosophers have long debated the concept of freedom, particularly the idea of free will versus determinism. So, free will suggests that we have the power to make our own choices, while determinism argues that our actions are predetermined by external factors, right? We could not have acted any other way than what we did. There are other philosophers who believe that humans are condemned to be free, meaning that we are responsible for our actions and the essence we create through our choices. And so I think I'm more on that end of the spectrum, and where I kind of believe that we are responsible for our actions and our choices, that we are free. And I will explore that a little bit more in a bit, because one of the things I thought about yesterday, as I was thinking about freedom, as I was thinking about the responsibility of being free, I thought about my journey with different careers and jobs. So I want to preface it by saying this. I believe that we all are designed intentionally. I think that we are all designed uniquely. I think that we are all designed in the way that we were meant to be designed for the life we are called to live. And so in that, the the challenges I experience, the life I experience will be very different from someone else's. And not only will the experience be different, but my lens on it will be different, because I am here for a purpose that is different than yours, right? So even if our circumstances look similar, what we may learn from it, we may, what we may receive from that experience may be so different. And it has a lot to do with our purpose, the lessons we're here to learn, how we're remembering the truth of who we are, how we've forgotten that God is in us. And so we're on that journey to remembering that God is in us, remembering the truth of who we are, remembering that we are not our egos, we are not our personas, we are not our feelings, we are not our emotions, right? Like, it's this remembrance journey. It's like God is playing a game of hide and seek with itself. So that is my lens and my perspective on life. And so for that reason, a lot of things I look at will come from that lens. And so, and I feel like this with anyone that talks, that shares their lens, their perspective, or their opinions, at the end of the day, that is the lens in which they see the world. And so I wanted to say that, because when I talk about employment and when I talk about my past jobs, I want to let you know that I, at a time, lived from a place of survival mode, right? Like, I grew up in a space that it was quote unquote never enough, right? There was always a competition. There was have and have not. Some people would receive, some people wouldn't. If you gave out your goods, then there was a chance you wouldn't get them back, right? Like, there was all this fear around everything. Mostly that, what you had could be taken away, or things just wouldn't work out for you. There was always this scarcity mindset that you had to keep your cards close to your chest, that other people was out to get you, that other people would, always take advantage of you. There was this constant being on edge and needing to get ahead, and all these different layers. And so, if I kind of grew up in that energy as a young adult, I'm still like that, right? There's this belief there that you got to protect yourself, and what protection looks like is different for everybody. And so when I talk about that, I want to say that one of my things were security was really important to me. And at the time, job security was it. And the reason why job security was important was because I remember I was like 15, and I told myself, uh, I want to have my own apartment. I want to live in New York City, and I don't want to be dependent on the government. I remember seeing how the government treated my mom when she went in to recertify, not the government, but the workers at the station, at the office. I remember like the different energies and attitudes people had when it came to governmental assistance and asking for help, and just it was like this very interesting energy behind it. Like, the people that were actually working there owned this money, and like there was this undertone of judgment, and it was just so interesting to me, um, because it also didn't seem like they were doing much to help, to help people get out of their situations. And so I had a very like interesting lens, and I remember one of my goals was just, I don't want to have to depend on the government, meaning I wanted to be able to afford my rent on my own. I just did not want to deal with any assistance, because it just felt like a whole bunch of conditions were attached to it, and people were just not kind about it. Whether or not that's a reason, I don't know. But the reality was that was my focus. And so I really just always wanted to be able to take care of myself financially. And so what that meant was that I needed a job, right? And not only any job, I needed a job that could sustain me, whatever that was, whatever that looked like. And so when I got into the workforce, my first job, I was 17, out of high school. I finished high school early. And so I was working at McDonald's. And so, like, that was my first job. Eventually, I ended up working other places, and then eventually I went into the military, right? And so within the military, I think I was like 2 years in, and I experienced chronic depression for the first time. I was just over it. I was miserable. I just wasn't happy. But at this time, I'd had everything I thought I wanted. I had the apartment to myself. I was living in a 2-bed, 2-bath. I had my own car that I got on my own, right? I had a steady income coming in. I was in a profession or a role that was pretty respected. I was stationed in Texas. And so on the outside looking in, your girl had did it, okay? She had did it. She had got it. And I was in school. And I was also probably interning with San Antonio Police Department. Shout out to them. I had the time of my life. So that was just a beautiful lens into the police world, and I respect it. But yeah, so I was like, I thought I thought I would have been really happy because I had gathered everything the world told me would make me happy. Y'all, I was so depressed. Okay. So then that happened. I decided to get out the military, right? And so you deciding to get out the military is like, at least for my dad was just like, if I had someone paying my bills and da da da, I would stay. And I was like, well, have you served? No. Okay. You don't know what you would do, right? Like, that's nice, but you don't know what you would do because you don't know what it's like in practice. And specifically, you don't know what it's like for me. And that's the thing there. And so deciding to leave the military was my first experience where I was so scared. I went through all the stages of grief because I was so scared to lose this stability, And then I had a very similar experience when I got into the legal world. And so I was entering all these worlds, and I would have these experiences where I would get start feeling like super depressive like symptoms. Like I was just not myself. I was a shell of a person. I was alive, but I wasn't living. I was just in this dark place. I was unhappy. And at the same time, I was scared. And I often felt trapped, like in these jobs and I was deeply unhappy, right? At the time, I didn't understand peace, and I didn't know how to get back to a place of peace. And I do remember there was a sergeant, he was a chief, and no, not a chief. What was he? I think he became chief, whatever. There was this chief that eventually told me that peace is yours, no one can give you or take away peace. And I didn't understand that until years later, but it came around. And so there was just so much I didn't know. And also, like, not only was I coming from a world of I was in survival mode and I thought the military would be helping me, and now I find myself in the military and I'm unhappy. I'm not satisfied. I even tried legal jobs. I'm not happy. I'm not satisfied. So I'm trying all these things that the world say I need to do in order to stay secure in it. And I was miserable. I kept getting sick. I just was not well. And so I would get super depressed and just hope that these employees would fire me. I didn't know how I was going to get fired from the military, but let me tell you, I have thought some things, okay? Because I was just like, I need to get out of this. But I had to be honest with myself. Like, I did not want to make the tough decision of quitting. I was scared. I was scared of not having another job lined up. I was scared of not having enough savings to support myself. Right? I didn't feel like I had anything to fall back on, right? If I make this choice and things don't work out, what am I going to do? Right? I can't call mom, I can't call dad. I can't call nobody and tell them what happened and they're going to just open their home, right? And then I was concerned about the I told you so's. So there was just so much going on in my mind. And again, I'm still young. People say that 18 is old, you adult, 21, you're an adult. But like when you don't get an opportunity to actually grow up and you are growing up very quickly because there's no responsible enough adults around you. And so you become your own caretaker and protector at a young age. At least that's the way you feel. Because my parents were around, but they weren't like hands on. And I don't feel like I got what I needed. But that was my perspective back then. And so there was a lot going on and I just felt very alone. And at the same time, I also felt very guided by God. So it was like so many things were happening. And in the world view, right? Like I had these responsibilities. I had all these things to do. No matter what choice I made, it was my problem, right? Like people can give their input all they want. But at the end of the day, I was the only one that would have to deal with the consequences. And that was something I had to realize and accept and stop worrying about what my dad thought about my choices, because it was like, no matter what I do, no matter how this turns out, I have to live with this. So if I decide to stay in this military miserable and unhappy, I have to live with that. Yeah, you might feel good because I'm safe and I have a job and you feel like I'm secure, but I am dying inside. Like I was dying. I felt spiritually dead at some points. There was points where I was just like, what's the point of living if I'm not living? What's the point of being alive if I'm not living? Because there are really, 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 really some things worse than death. And so I was processing a lot, but eventually, right, I realized that these jobs weren't going to fire me. And it was my responsibility and up to myself to free myself from those environments that were obviously like not correct for me. But I remember thinking like, I want them to fire me. I want them to fire me because I just didn't want to be responsible for what happened next. Because if I leave this job and then I'm not able to pay my bills and I end up unhoused, right, which was one of my big fears, everybody is going to blame me. Everybody's going to say, well, you left that job. You didn't have anything lined up. That wasn't smart, right? Because the world tells you, right? A society often tells us, and right, again, this is from the world I live in, the world I grew up in, that you do what you got to do until you can do what you want. And then I got God saying, this door is closed. And so that's how my faith grew, okay? Because I'll be scared as hell leaving these jobs, especially when I left the law field, when I decided to stop litigating. I took a big pay cut, okay? A major pay cut. And I didn't have I had no plans of applying for another salary job. I was done. I was finished. I had made my decision. But in making that decision, there was a lot I was sacrificing. There was a lot I've put up in the air. I tell people now, like, I am sacrificing a lot to do what I'm doing. And a lot of people wouldn't do it. A lot of people wouldn't do it. And that's fair. But we all have choices to make. We all have choices to make. Because there's some people I know that just quit their job completely, no backup plan, not worrying about nothing, right? I'm still not there yet, right? And just focusing on growing their business. I'm not there yet. Right. And so that's a different level of freedom in my mind. But I think that goes back to like, we all have choices. We all have circumstances that we're considering. And at the end of the day, it is up to us to decide what's next. And so I would leave these jobs with no plan, no job lined up, and be winging it. And it was always scary because I didn't know what would happen next. But through these circumstances, because when I tell you it happened more than once, it was happening. It just kept happening. Like every job I would get after a certain amount of time, I would just feel super depressed. And so I knew when I was young that I didn't want a traditional job. I didn't know what I was going to do with my life, but I felt it. Like I never was that girl that imagine retiring traditionally, or imagine the 9 to 5, or imagine the house. Like, that wasn't my thing. Like, I knew I wanted to work for myself. I didn't know how that was going to look. I knew I just wanted to do my own thing. Like, the idea of a 9 to 5 and all that just didn't sit right in my soul. But I didn't see anything else around me. And so I did what I knew would work, hoping that it'll eventually get me to where I wanted to be. And so making the choice to leave jobs without security, the security of another job, or like a significant savings, was terrifying. But it also taught me a crucial lesson, that I am responsible for my own life. I always have a choice, even if the options are tough. And I feel like that's the thing about freedom. You have to be willing to be responsible for it. Everybody's waiting for someone to free you. No one can free you, babe. You are inherently free because you have free will. You have choice. And so only you can free yourself. And then there's this idea of like practical freedom, right? And so practical freedom involves the ability to make choices that align with our personal desires and goals. This includes personal autonomy, making decisions about our own lives without undue interference, economic and social freedom, like having access to resources and opportunities, and political freedom, such as the right to participate in governance. So my experience was showing me that even within societal constraints, I could exercise my freedom by making choices that felt true to me, right? So if that means that traditional jobs and their environments just don't resonate with me and I choose to leave, that is my choice, because I get to make that choice. I get to decide, accept what is and stay there, or make a new choice. And so it was always a choice. And like, I say too, it was also a lot of sacrifices. I was telling one of my homeboys the other day, I was like, we're always sacrificing something. Every time we choose something, we're sacrificing something in that moment. And it don't have to be anything big. It's just something to think about, right? And so like, honoring my freedom meant making significant sacrifices. I had to let go of the security and stability that came with those jobs. There were times I faced financial instability, like living paycheck to paycheck, right? Like times where I didn't get a contract for a little while and I wasn't sure, I got nervous because, again, right, my fear was not being able to pay my bills, right? Becoming unhoused. Those were true concerns. But at the same time, I was so miserable within my body and my mind that it was just like, none of this shit matters anyway, right? Like, what do I care if I'm not alive to enjoy it? And so like, it was a real process, like understanding and getting to this place of understanding this idea of freedom. And so something else I wanted to add about that, right? Like I mentioned, like there's times where the finances were questionable, and also there was also social rejection, because people think when you speak up about things or you say something that you're being problematic, or that you got an issue with authority. That was something I often heard, and I'm just like, I ain't got no issue with authority. I got an issue with people telling me what to do that is just parroting what somebody else said. People tell me what to do and they don't know, no, they don't even know how to run their own life. You trying to run my life too? Like, no, thank you. And so, these were interesting times, and I had come to accept that, you know what, I am a conscious disruptor, because I'm going to speak up and speak out. And there was times where I would speak out about the circumstances and the systematic issues, especially when I was in legal field. Once I got inside the legal field, because I always say, there's one thing being outside, but when you get inside and you see how things are run, you're just like, what? And so I was seeing the things happening, the systematic issues, the rotating of clients coming in, people band-aiding people, real world, real life problem, putting a band-aid on it, instead of getting to the root of it to really help them make, transformative change. And a lot of that just like, it hurts to watch, because the population that I was serving when I was in legal field were the same population that my mom belongs to, my aunts, my uncles, my community. I saw with every client I had, I saw a family member. I saw someone I loved and cared about. I saw my neighbor. I saw my community. And so knowing that they not really getting the help they actually need was shit. Because that's how we end up in a loop. That's how we end up in survival mode. That's how we end up feeling like we have to compete with each other. We have to still rob, that everybody can't win. This is an abundant world we live in. And yet there's this idea that everyone can't win. Everyone's needs can't be met, which is wild. But a lot of this has to do with mindsets. A lot of this has to do with conditioning. A lot of this has to do with the systems we have in place that we've convinced people that are the only way to do life. That we've convinced each other this is just the way it is. Right? So I've worked at nonprofits. I worked in the legal realms where I saw firsthand how systematic policies could be harmful, right? And when I recognized this, I chose to walk away from those environments too. And that wasn't an easy decision, but it was necessary for my values and my sense of freedom. Yes, systematic oppression is real and affects our choices, but we can still exercise our personal agency. And I know for me, I have a lot of trust in the God within. And so I truly do believe that if I stay true to who I am, if I stay true to what feels aligned for me, that everything is going to work out exactly how it's meant to. And no matter what that looks like or how that expresses itself, that I know that I'm always good. That whatever experience I have is the exact one I need, that I am not at the mercy of this world. That life happens for me, not to me. And so it took some mindset shifting and some understanding of this world and some experimenting, right? And some willingness to take risks, some willingness to step outside the box, a willingness to do life in a way that people said was crazy. For me to remember that I was already free. I don't have to wait for freedom. I'm not asking anyone to come and free me. I don't need anyone's permission for that. Right? Like, other men are given other humans, right? And when I say men, I mean women, men, however people identify. So other people are giving other humans authority, right? Whether that's the president, whether that's police officers. And then these individuals believe that they are now have agency over us. And that's just not how that works. We are always free to choose. It does not matter what decision, what circumstance you're in. You're always free to choose. The choices might be tough, but it's always a choice. And that's why you're free. That's why I believe we're free already. No, we may not want the responsibility of it, but it is what it is. You may not like the idea or concept that, oh, I'm already free. No, I'm not. You're not, because you don't want to be. And that's okay too. Like, I'm not judging whether or not you are free or you believe you're free. For me, this is not a debate. You know what I mean? This is not a discussion. But I also do understand that it is a lot of responsibility and that it is scary. And I can understand why some people don't want it. Don't want to deal with it. Don't want to have to worry about it. When I was in my social work classes, I forgot this professor name. But I often used to be so curious about people, because people would say how they're so against the systems, how they're against certain policies, how they get against certain actions, and then they will work for a company that does all those things. And oftentimes the argument I would hear is, I got to feed my family. So for me, right, and not to be rude, not to be disrespectful, this is a choice, right? You are free to choose, and you are choosing to accept that this is the way the world works and that you will indulge in it. You will engage with it. That is okay. And that is a choice. And so I always used to find it funny that people would say that they care so much, and then their choices, their actions would say something else. But I understood that what they valued and where that belief was on that list differed. They value something else much more, and it probably was security, right? Because they needed to take care of their families. So even if other people are being harmed in this process, I got to do what I got to do because my family got to eat. And that's some of our mentalities, and a lot of us are raised to believe that too. I know I was in a lot of environments like that, and it just never made sense to me. But I don't think I was designed to be like that, right? I'm designed to be who I am, this person who has values, believes that she has integrity, right? And wants to honor that. And if that means that I don't get to live the life that prestigious roles, these prestigious workplaces, this Uber responsibility, then so be it. But I'm being purposeful in whatever I'm meant to do. And so I get that freedom is layered and complex, and everyone's circumstances are different. And those differences matter. But regardless of our circumstances, the reality remains that we always have a choice. It's okay to choose the traditional route for stability and security, as long as we acknowledge that it's a choice. One thing I believed as I was understanding the ego and learning about the ego and exploring my own ego, and I was doing those workshops about, managing the ego, I started to realize that it wasn't so much that we were making choices or doing things from the lens of the ego. The issue was that we wasn't aware of it. And that's where managing the ego wasn't possible. But when we become aware of something, when we have a conscious knowing, like, hey, I know the consequences of this action and I'm choosing to do it anyway. For me, that's freedom. It doesn't matter what the consequence is. It doesn't matter who agrees or disagrees. I have somebody in my life who I respect so much and I adore because they taught me so much about freedom just by being. They didn't use those terms. They didn't say, hey, Charlie, I'm teaching you freedom. They were just being. And through their beingness, I witnessed what it meant to be free from their lens, right? Because they would make choices and I would be like, oh my gosh, all scared for them. And they'd be like, no, I thought about it and that's what I chose to do. And I'm okay with the consequences. And it was just something so beautiful about that because it's like, yes, I processed the consequences I perceived was possible in the circumstance. And in that processing and in that analyzing, I chose to do this. Right? If I'm in a marriage or I'm in a relationship and I'm not happy, I know the consequences of leaving a long-term marriage, right? I know the consequences, how it might affect, right, if I had kids, right? All these things. And yet I'm choosing to walk away. That's freedom. I have couples around me that are just not happy in their marriages. They've been together for over 20 years. And they tell me, oh, I'm waiting for them. I'm waiting for them. You're scared. And it's okay. You're scared and it's okay. Because you don't need to wait for them to leave. You don't need their permission to leave. They don't need to agree for you to leave. You are choosing to allow them to have the responsibility because you don't want it. You don't want to deal with the consequences of that choice. And that's okay. And so it really does, for me, go back to choice. Because even if you choose to stay at your traditional job, right, that is still freedom. Because you are choosing to do that. That is your choice. Even if you don't feel good about it, that is still your choice. At any moment, you can decide, I'm leaving this job and I will deal with the consequences as they come. And so, honoring freedom often means making hard choices and accepting the consequences. It's about living authentically and making choices that align with our values. Even if the consequences seem daunting, recognizing our ability to choose is empowering. So, as we are in the energy of Juneteenth, right, and I want to invite you to reflect on your own life and the choices you face. How can you honor your freedom? What sacrifices are you willing to make to live authentically? Remember, freedom is not just a right, it's a responsibility. And it starts with recognizing that we always have a choice. You are free now, but it requires responsibility. I love you all so much. I hope that this entry sparked something in you. If it triggered anything, aka activated you, if you felt uncomfortable as I was talking, as I was saying something, and you got some words from me, hit me up. Let me know. Um, like I said, my intentions are never to disrespect anyone. At the end of the day, these are my perspectives. This is how I view life. It does not make it facts, and you don't have to adopt it as if it's true. This is my perspective. And so, if it can start a conversation, I am here for it. Um, Earlier, when I said that this is not up for debate, I just meant my beliefs, not necessarily the conversation. Um, and so, I wanted to clear that up in case there's some, I don't know. But, anywho, as I mentioned, we are at the top of the morning, and I'm gonna go and get this edited and out to you all. I love you all so, so, so much. Thank you for being here. Remember that you are free now, okay? It starts with recognizing that we always have a choice. Freedom is not just a right, is not only inherited, but it's a responsibility. And a responsibility is yours. I love you. Be blessed. Stay blessed. Have your best day on purpose. And I'll speak to you soon.